Alright, let's talk about Ciaccona, the newest Aero Erosion and Spectral Frazzle buffer, added to Wuthering Waves. And in this video, we're going to talk about our teams, kit, and rotation, so that way you know everything that you need to know before you roll. So let's go ahead and start with her kit. And she has 4 main mechanics: her basic attack combo, her forte bar, canceling, and her resonance liberation. So let's break down her basic attack 4 combo. Once it finishes, you're able to create a sylph, which allows you to gain a 24% arrow damage bonus for the team. On top of that, you also apply a stack of Aero Erosion, basically Spectral Frazzle for arrow. But the main thing that it does is generate stacks for your forte bar. There's only 2 ways how you generate stacks. One, by introing in, and the other is by doing a basic attack 4 combo. There are various ways to where you can quickly get to this basic attack 4 combo, and I'm going to mention the most relevant one so that we can quickly master this. So the reason why we're trying to fill up our forte bar is so that way we can cast an AoE Vortex, her main damage dealing move. This also applies a stack of Aero Erosion. On top of that, this also generates a lot of Concerto, allowing you to switch to your main hyper carry much sooner. So once you have 3 stacks, all you need to do is cast a heavy attack to activate the forte bar. Which brings us to her 3rd main mechanic, canceling. By canceling her basic attack 4s at the right time, you're going to be able to drastically reduce her fill time. And you can cancel these by doing a dodge cancel or a jump cancel, which is preferred. And you can also cancel this animation by casting your skill. But the best way to know when to activate these cancels is when you generate a stack on your forte bar. Because once that happens, Ciaccona is going to start activating her basic attack 4. So if canceled properly, you're going to be able to do 2 basic attack 4 combos in the time it takes you to do 1. So let's quickly talk about her skill, which doesn't really do anything besides apply a stack of Aero Erosion. But it can cancel that basic attack 4 animation. Which brings us to her last main mechanic, her resonance liberation. So you need to make sure that you cast all of her combos and activate her echo before activating her resonance liberation. Because once you enter this form, you're not going to be able to get out unless you swap characters or activate her liberation again. But what this form does is constantly apply Aero Erosion or Spectral Frazzle stacks. It automatically applies Aero Erosion, but if you want to apply Spectral Frazzle stacks, you have to make sure you activate it before you switch off of her, with her mini quick time event. But while she's in the form, she's immune to interruption and she takes reduced damage. And the last thing to know about her kit is her outro, to where she's going to give 100% Aero Erosion damage amp for the team. So now let's talk about her rotation, and this is something that you want to try to master if you're looking to get an upcoming character. You want to intro in and cast 2 basic attacks, and then you want to do a jump cancel, and then you want to do 3 more basic attacks. Then you want to cast her skill, activate her forte, cast her echo, and then activate her resonance liberation. And then you want to outro to your next character. So now let's go ahead and talk about her build. So you mainly want to focus on crit rate and crit damage, but her most important stat is energy recharge, so where you're going to want somewhere between 130 to 140 energy. And for her extra stat, you're going to want resonance liberation, especially if you decide to get some more sequences on her. Which brings us to her echoes, and the main set that she's going to want is Gust Awoken, due to the fact that this set increases her arrow damage as well as increases the team's arrow damage. And for the boss echo, she is going to want Fleur de Lis, due to the fact that it also increases her arrow damage. But do note that we are getting some new echoes next set, so this might change. But her only other set is the Moonlit set, which you might want to consider if you're trying to use her in a Spectral Frazzle team. And for the boss echo, you want to of course use the Impermanence Heron, to where this echo combined with the set further increases your hyper carry's damage. For your 4-cost echo, you're going to want to go with either crit rate or crit damage, and this is mainly going to depend on how your stats look and what weapon you're currently using. For your 3-cost echo, you're going to want to go with arrow damage, but you could use attack if you don't have good arrow damage pieces. But as I mentioned earlier, one of her main stats that she wants is energy recharge, so if you find yourself struggling, you might want to consider using 1 energy recharge 3-cost echo. And for the 1-cost, you want to use attack. Also note that you can use modifiers to help you create better echoes. Which brings us to her weapons, and of course her signature weapon is her best weapon, due to the fact that it increases her attack, her arrow damage, and gives it a fence shred for arrow for the team. Her second best option would be Static Mist, due to the fact that it provides crit rate, it has a high base attack, it also provides energy recharge, which she desperately needs, and it also increases her attack. And her last 5-star weapon would be Carlisle's weapon, which does not really do much for her, besides be a stat stick by providing crit damage and attack. Bringing us to the 4-star options, to where her best one would be Romance and Farewell, the new craftable weapon, since she's going to easily be able to activate the effect by applying negative statuses. other teammates are going to be able to use these types of weapons as well. After that, you have Nova Burst, to where you should be able to activate the effect due to the amount of dodging you're going to do. Which brings us to her skills. So you want to focus on leveling up her Liberation, her Forte, then her normal attack, then her skill, and then her intro, to where the intro could be left at 6. So now let's quickly talk about her sequences. Sequence 1 gives her more immunity when she's casting her skill, and gives her a 10% damage buff. Sequence 2 is a 15% damage team buff, and this is probably where you want to stop if you want to get some sequences. Sequence 3 just allows you to shorten your rotation, so it's mainly just for quality of life. Sequence 4 is just another 10% damage buff for her. Sequence 5 is a slightly less damage buff, but it also gives damage reduction for the team. And Sequence 6 is like a 20% damage buff for her. Which brings us to her teams. Now currently there's not really a good team for her right now, but if you're willing to take out the healer slot, she has some decent options, but still not the greatest. The first one being Gian, due to the fact that he is an Aero hyper carry. Ciaccona is going to be able to buff him. The only problem is that you don't have many options on who you can take out of the team, with your best choice being Shorekeeper, which is a big loss, due to the fact that how much Mortifeed does for Gian. With our next choice being Zani, to where if you were not able to get Phoebe and you're just left with Spectral Rover, you can use Ciaccona to help get you those extra Spectral Frazzle stacks. And this would be the same for Phoebe if you don't have Zani, to where you can use Ciaccona with Spectral Rover to also help generate Spectral stacks for Phoebe. And this mainly shines in Wuthering Waves due to the fact that Phoebe's constantly losing stacks on enemies due to the multi-wave content. So Ciaccona is a very interesting character, but she is clearly waiting for Cardathea. As mentioned, there are some options you can do where you replace your healer for Ciaccona, but let's just go ahead and take a look at that. So if you were to replace Shorekeeper, what you're losing is 12.5% crit rate, 32% crit damage, a 15% damage amp, and you're also losing 25% attack from the healer set. Now, if you're replacing Verena, you can take out the crit, but you are still losing the 15% damage amp and the 25% attack. So she doesn't really feel worth it, unless you're trying to master her rotation. She has sub DPS damage, but it's similar to Phoebe's Confession state, which is pretty weak, unless you're getting some sequences. And even if you do decide to get some sequences, you generally don't want to go any higher than sequence 2, and that's even before you get her signature weapon. And you might want to just save all those rows for Cardathea, and look to pick up more sequences on her rerun. So the main thing that she has going for her is helping Phoebe in Wuthering Waves. But if you do decide to pull for her for Cardathea, I do recommend that you master her rotation, so that way you can drastically reduce her field time. But with that, you should know everything that you need to know before you roll. So, are you rolling for Ciaccona, or are you waiting for some of those future characters? But other than that, I'll talk with you guys later.